I want to introduce you to Juliana Birnbaum, who, besides being a key uh, person on Spirit Rock's staff, doing so many things, especially these days, so many different hats, um, she's been involved with climate and environment for many years, a permaculture expert who's been the director of the Sustainable Revolution Project, written books to Sustainable Revolution, Permaculture in Eco Villages, Urban Farms, and Communities Worldwide, and has worked a lot with Paul Hawken, first on his book Drawdown, and she's a contributing editor of this new amazing book called Regeneration, Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation. And I wanted her to share with you the most amazing website that I can remember seeing, and to give you a sense of all the things that are going on these days and ways that you might kind of get excited and engaged. So, Juliana, please.
Thank you so much, James. I'm really excited to try to bring together some of the themes that we've been talking about today and how you can translate them into action. There are literally thousands and thousands of actions that we can take to support our planet, to mitigate climate change. And some of them you may be doing already, but I want to connect you with so many of them through many different potential solutions and pathways. For me, Dharma and ecology, where they come together. I think Kyra Jewell covered this beautifully in talking about interbeing. And regeneration is about bringing together nature-based solutions with social justice, with Indigenous voices, recognizing that Indigenous voices are not only on the front lines of protecting many of the most crucial environments on the planet, such as the Amazon, they're also some of our wisest teachers. And regeneration also highlights women's voices, how lifting up women and educating girls is a huge part of the regeneration that we need on our planet to be able to mitigate climate change. So it brings together those solutions with the social justice piece, and that's what really excited me about it. I'm blessed to be on the staff at Spirit Rock, but as James mentioned, I worked for 10 years on a project called Sustainable Re-Evolution. I was inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh and his famous quote about the next Buddha coming in the form of a community. And so I started researching community-based solutions around the world, and that led me to permaculture, which is basically a regenerative design system that aims to design in alignment with nature. And also really brings together the human, the care for the earth and the care for people, and justice piece, the sharing the surplus, are the ethics of permaculture. So it was a great honor to me when Paul Hawken agreed to write the foreword to that book in 2014. And since then, I've gotten to be involved with a little bit of research and writing on Drawdown, and now a bit more on his newest group project, which brings together a beautiful team from around the world of researchers and scientists to talk about how we can regenerate the planet. So I'm going to share the website with you and kind of guide you through a little bit of some of these solutions. So as I mentioned, regeneration, as we talked about so much today, it puts life at the center of every action and decision. And it applies to all of life, so grasslands, farms, insects, forests, fish, wetlands, coastlands, and oceans, and applies equally to communities, cities, schools, religion, commerce, governments, and to climate. If we're looking at how to mitigate climate change, we're going to bring together the connections and look at the connections between ecology and humanity. And so I'll just go quickly to the Site Explorer so you can see a little bit how you might spend some time going around this site. But the book came out last year. It was, the foreword was by Jane Goodall, who her work really represents how when she became interested in the plight of the chimpanzee, she learned that in order to protect their environment, it was about lifting up the people in the community that and looking at the reasons why their habitat was being threatened. So the book brings together many beautiful thinkers, like I mentioned, especially prioritizing Indigenous and women's voices. And the website is now basically going into each of the solutions in the book and looking at agency. What can you do as an individual, as an organization, as a company, if you're a farmer, if you're an educator, what can you actually do about each of these solutions? And all of these little actions together are what inspires me about how we can create a tipping point and how we can be, as Dwayne Elgin showed in his diagram, the little yellow arrows there, be that solution, the one where the people and the grassroots action comes together to bring all of these solutions to the forefront. And I think each of them need to be implemented much faster than they are now, but each of them is something that is already in progress, and there are already connections that you can make with the groups that are supporting these solutions. So here you can see a short list of the solutions. You can make a punch list where you look at what you can do, exactly what you are going to commit to in this year. And then what I'm going to focus on today are the different frameworks for action. So he summarizes them here: 6 priorities: equity, reduce, protect, sequester, influence, and support. And so let's look at how that translates into some of these solutions. So I'm going to scroll down to the cascade of solutions. Each of these solutions, if you click on it, gives you a little, just a teeny blurb about what that solution is. There might be some here that you're familiar with. This one is bioregions, and some that might be new to you. I wonder if anyone is familiar with asparagopsis. You'll have to dig into the site to find out what asparagopsis is and how it's a solution. But as we scroll down through these nature-based solutions on the top, beavers, fire ecology, some of the solutions that involve restoring these natural environments, and going down to solutions that start to involve people and agriculture. So we've got agroforestry, regenerative agriculture, education of girls, which is the piece that I'm currently researching. Clean cook stoves, that's one that I worked on earlier that talks about how the way that we cook affects our environment and emissions. And then going into some energy solutions like wind and solar. And then down into our cities and solutions like electrifying everything and bringing nature back into our cities. So for each of these, what I'm working on now is something called Nexus. Nexus is the network of solutions and actions that are linked to each of these. So I'm going to go into this one for a minute, Nature of Cities, which is one that I think might be the most accessible to many of you, whether or not you live in a city. Some of these solutions are things that you can do. So the brief is to imagine cities that are more green than gray, where buildings are clad in vines, landscape terraces and medians are sanctuaries for birds and pollinators, paved over creeks are restored, and many species long absent start to return to dwell in the parks, brooks, and forests, which is something that's already happening in many cities, that species are coming back in places that are restored that hadn't been seen for many decades. Urban trees and plants also, very importantly, mitigate heat, which is going to be more and more essential as climate change makes heat waves more common. And it also really affects flooding, which is another issue that's come up. Many cities just in this year have had to deal with overwhelming amounts of water. How does bringing nature back into our cities affect that? And all while sequestering carbon and hosting life. So if you go into the nexus, you see the call to action and then the action items. So as an individual, you could take action in your own city or town to protect trees, increase permeable and green surfaces. You could transform a vacant lot, an alley, or a rooftop, join a local group taking actions like this. Another solution is supporting and protecting existing urban green spaces and parks. Planting to maximize biodiversity and support pollinators, something that we can do even in containers if we live in an urban environment. Embracing forms of urban housing that preserve or create natural corridors and promote the sharing of common resources. So the sharing of resources and collaboration, I think, is going to be key to the regenerative movement. And that's just a few of the different actions you can take. Some of them are maybe more what you'd think of in terms of speaking up, writing an op-ed to a newspaper or social media site about the topic that inspires you the most or that you have the most knowledge or experience with. Pressuring local and national governments, petitioning city officials. But it's also about practicing. How can we practice agriculture ourselves by even planting balconies, rooftops, joining a community garden? And even something like getting together with your neighbors and installing shade sails in an urban environment can do so much to cool down certain corridors of the city, increase biodiversity, and keep people safe during heat waves. So then we go into, that's my alarm for myself. Then each of these nexus goes into different groups and how those groups could take action. And then finally, companies and governments. So I'm feeling like the next step to this project after we go through, as our team has now gone through about half of the solutions that are in the book and put in this nexus piece where research all of the different ways that that solution can be implemented and actions that can be taken. And then the next step, I think, is going to be to spend the rest of our lives getting the right people, those who make the policy, to take up these solutions, getting the farmers to make the changes, getting the schools to make the changes that are needed. So we're just at the beginning of what I think, as has been discussed today, is going to be an intense journey. There might be a lot of challenges ahead, but I do believe that we are empowered with the wisdom and the knowledge and the creativity that we need in order to face those solutions. But we need to keep connected to each other and not give up hope. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Juliana. Maybe you just got a little taste, but I will say once you go onto that website and you just keep on scrolling down and down and down, it's one of the best hyperlink realities to get to go down a rabbit hole where you're seeing how many wonderful things are happening right now on this planet and how many projects we can be moved to participate in or see what we can do on our own. If you just say, "Oh, what can be done?" There's too much. There's people, many people, millions of people that are working hard to make this planet a healthy place and a healthy home for all of us. And it's so inspiring. And I'm so glad that you're part of our Spirit Rock family, Juliana, and doing the work you're doing with, as I think, part of your climate action for life.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say one last quote from Robin Wall Kimmerell, who's come up a lot today in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. I think that it's so important to remember in our despair at what is happening on the planet that she talks about how people have forgotten that they can actually be medicine for the land. And asking yourself that question, how can I be medicine for the planet? And finding what your true expertise, what your calling is, and dedicating yourself to some of the actions that really connect with your heart and who you are.
Mhm. Thanks so much, Juliana.